What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Jalil. Now listen, in order to be a good product designer, you need to understand how to think about products the right way. People use products because they help them achieve a goal in their lives. If your app or website doesn't help people achieve a goal, then nobody's gonna use it. Now, an effective way of understanding how people think about products and why people choose to use certain products over others is by using the jobs to be done framework. Once you understand this framework, you'll have a great foundation for product thinking. This is a super important skill for designers, and it helps companies take you seriously. You'll always have a seat at the table because you'll know how to create products that sell. Sound interesting? All right, let's get into it then. All right, so what is the jobs to be done framework? It's essentially a framework popularized by some very smart people at a company called Intercom. It comes from the insight that people don't buy products, they hire products to get a job done. This is a very important insight because this means that markets aren't actually defined by products, but they're defined by jobs to be done. So let me give you an example. You remember encyclopedias, right? So Britannica thought there was a market for encyclopedias, but they ended up losing $1 billion in 6 years because of this mistake. This might lead you to think there actually wasn't a market for encyclopedias, but in actuality, that was just the complete wrong way to be thinking about it. Instead of thinking about it as it's a market for encyclopedias, what it really was a market for the job of finding information. Google made $900 billion in this exact same market because they help people do it in a much more effective way. So markets shouldn't be defined by products because products are always changing. They should be defined by jobs to be done because those rarely change. Humans have wanted to find information since the day we could talk. Jobs to be done is a great framework because it gives you a stable problem and a very tangible design goal. Understanding the jobs to be done of your users should be the first thing that you do before you start designing anything in your project. So how do you use jobs to be done? There's 5 main steps in this process for digital product design. First, start with the main job. Second, identify smaller jobs that help accomplish the main job. 3, observe how people are solving the problem now. 4, come up with a job story that examines the causalities, anxieties, and motivations of what they do now. And 5 is to create a solution to solve that job story. So I'm sure that all sounds very abstract right now, very high level. It's okay, we're gonna bring this all in with an example and we're gonna walk through it all together. So let's use the website Quora, for example, the question and answer website. So step number 1 is to start with the high level job. So in Quora's case, the high level job is that people want answers to their questions. Make sure that the job is stable and actionable. If it's stable and actionable, then it's a good job. A good way to evaluate the stability of your job is by asking yourself, how long has this job been around? People have wanted answers to their questions since the day that they could ask questions, so we're good in this sense. And you want to make sure that you're defining these high-level jobs at the right level of abstraction. You don't want to get too high level, like, oh, as a human, I want to survive, because that's not giving you any direction to point yourself into. You want to go a little bit lower than that. What is a core motivation that people have had since we've existed? In Facebook's example, maybe it's to connect with friends. Step number 2 is to identify smaller jobs that help get the higher level job done. And we can call these job steps. Now there are 6 types of job steps involved in getting a job done. Understanding something, planning something, executing something, assessing something, revising something, and concluding something. So let's try a few examples here of job steps for getting an answer to your question. One thing you might want to do is plan who you're asking the question to. You're going to want to actually ask the question. You're going to want to assess whether or not the answer is reliable or not. And if the answer isn't reliable, then you'll have to go and find an answer that is reliable. So that would be a revision step. Okay, now step number 3 is to observe how people solve the problem now. So in this step, you're going to want to go out and interview people and understand how they accomplished the job that we identified in step 1. You essentially want to identify job steps that are slow or inaccurate. These job steps are going to be the problems that you want to design solutions for. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to go out and interview anybody. Instead, I'll just make some assumptions. So before Quora was a thing, it's safe to assume that people were getting answers to their questions in a few ways. They could ask their friends, they could go to a library and get a book, or they could do a Google search. Now each of these solutions have their own downfalls. Asking your friends limits your knowledge base. If your friend isn't an expert in the topic that you need an answer to, then you're not going to get a good answer. So it's quick in order to get the answers from people, but it might not be the most accurate. Finding a book at a library is slow and inaccurate. You have to first spend time figuring out which book you need to read, and then you have to go through reading the book, not certain that you're going to get an exact answer to your specific question. More so you just get a broad knowledge about the topic, and that's not an efficient use of your time if you're just trying to get a quick answer to your question. So it's slow and inaccurate in that sense. Doing a Google search is quick, but it's not the most accurate, because on Google you can get answers from anywhere on the internet. So you always are going to have to be checking your sources to make sure that your answer is reliable. So it's quick, but it's not accurate. Alright, so now that you've observed people trying to solve the problem, it's time to create a job story. Now, as I mentioned before, job stories are going to be investigating the causalities, anxieties, and motivations of what people do now. These job stories are written in the format of when blank, I want to blank, so that I can blank. The when focuses on the context. The I want to focuses on the desire that's triggered by that context. And the so I can focuses on the expected outcome from fulfilling that desire. So here's an example of a job story that I might come up with based on the last step. When I ask a question, I want to know the credibility of the people who answer so that I know which answer to trust. So what makes this a good job story? Well, for one, it defines the context or causality that triggers the desire. Another reason is that the desire is written in a way that is clear and actionable. It doesn't limit the types of solutions that you can build. And the last part articulates the anxiety that the desire is rooted in, which in this case is to understand whether or not an answer is trustworthy. Here's another job story. When I'm short on time and I have a question, I want to get an answer quickly so I don't waste my time. This is another good job story for the same reasons as I just mentioned. Remember, first you want to provide the context that causes the desire. Then you want to articulate the desire. Then you want to articulate the expected result of fulfilling that desire. When blank, I want to blank so I can blank. And the last step is to create a solution that resolves the job story. So let's take the first job story we made as an example. When I ask a question, I want to know the credibility of the people who answer so that I know which answers to trust. So if I were building Quora, some features that I could implement in this scenario are putting a person's credibility right next to their name when they answer a question, highlighting the person's credibility and achievements in their profile, and adding an upvote functionality so that people get a sense of other people's opinions of who to trust. So a job story should allow you to generate multiple solutions like this. Now we communicate jobs to be done in this format because it gives you a clear direction towards the functions that your product should support, which means you'll know exactly what to design. If you want to learn more about the Jobs to be Done framework, I'll leave some links in the description. So please go check those out, especially if you're new to this concept. It'll be very, very useful if you check those links out. All right, and that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you made it to the end, please leave a like. It helps the channel out a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comment section below. Let me know any feedback you had. If you liked the video, let me know in the comments, and I'm gonna catch you in the next video. I'm out.